on behalf of the Durham Farm Fresh Board and our close partners, the Region of Durham Economic Development team, Stacey and Alyson, and they are the ones who have graciously provided this Microsoft Teams platform that enables us to record tonight's discussion. I would like to welcome you and thank you for joining us on such a beautiful night. We recognize that this is a busy season, but we thought that tonight's discussion on this topic would be really timely for those of you who are newly open or opening soon. As we all know, things are evolving and changing and very fluid, not just from day to day, but almost by the hour. And with almost all the guidelines, recommendations, and regulations, there is often room for individual interpretation that can result in confusion and just uncertainty in how to operate and how to move forward. And it is our hope that with our lineup of speakers that we have tonight, that it will help to shed some light on the current situation for you, answer some of the questions you may have, and reassure you that we are all in this together and we are here to help each other out however we can. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Stacey Jibb and Alyson Brown with the Region of Durham to go over some of the housekeeping items for tonight's discussion.
Perfect. So I'll just go over some quick housekeeping items so you guys know how to navigate Teams as we move along with this webinar. So to start, if you hover your mouse over your screen or tap your screen on your tablet, depending on what you're using, a little taskbar will come up. So right beside the video button, there's a microphone, so it says mute. So when you're not speaking, we'd ask that you remain on mute just so that the quality of the webinar is better for everyone else. The camera button is available too. You're welcome to have your camera on or off, whatever your preference is. But if your video or audio quality starts to bog down, sometimes we find turning the camera off draws a little less of the internet power, so that can be helpful at times. And there's also a discussion box. So that is 2 to the left from your hang up button on your taskbar. So we'll use that to track questions. So if you have any questions at any point, feel free to type them in. And we will take a few questions, a few pressing questions after each presenter, but otherwise we'll likely hold our questions to the end so we can have a good conversation. So feel free to add them to the box whenever you feel, and we'll make sure that they're asked by the end. And then without further ado, I think we'll move along to our presenters.
Awesome, thanks Alyson. So our first presenter is Danielle Collins. She's an Economic Development Policy Analyst with the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, and she's going to be doing a short presentation on their guide to direct sales to consumers during COVID-19 and beyond. So I'll hand it over to Danielle.
Great, thanks Stacey. Just getting myself in presenter mode here. So hi everyone. As we all know, the situation has evolved rapidly in this space, and certainly some of our information, as things change, we have to modify what we're sharing, but this is information for your information only and not considered legal or health advice. We certainly encourage you to look to the Ministry of Health, your local public health unit, and making sure you're following the provincial guidance as we learn about it. So when we first heard about COVID-19, OFA was quite quick to jump on top of creating a COVID resource hub. And so if you go to our website /COVID-19, you'll be able to find all the information that we have as we update it regularly with resources and information. So that's a great place to check out all the resources that we've developed and everything that I've included today. So 2 of the resources we did develop, which is why I believe we were invited on tonight, is the Guide to Operating Your Essential Farm Business During COVID-19, and also a guide for direct sales to consumers during COVID-19 and beyond. So I'll be highlighting the second one in more detail. But the first one really, when a lot of businesses were ordered to close, farm businesses were still considered an essential business. And so there was a lot of confusion at the time when we developed this back in March about how to continue to operate safely and what the best information out there was. So we first developed this beginning of April, and we have updated it since. So this guide is meant to be a little bit more for any farm business. So looking at how do you facilitate your business interactions on the farm, if there is exposure to COVID-19, some of the actions that you should take, managing risk. So really looking at how to prevent outbreaks from happening and how to prevent COVID-19 on your farm. So some general advice, well, recommendations, and then resources. So lots of resources out there. We're certainly not we're one of many organizations that are providing information right now. So please consult with every resource you can find. I'll share some tonight to keep up to date on the latest. But the guide that I was asked to highlight tonight is our direct sales guide. And I'll walk through some of the information in the guide. It is available on our website, and they'll be sharing this deck with you after as well. So this was again developed back in April, but we also have updated it since to look at, it was developed in response to grocery stores being closed and garden centers being closed, really looking at what are some alternative markets. So while many of you on here tonight are probably used to selling direct, it was new for many. So we've provided some suggestions for ways that they could maybe do direct farm sales, whether that's at the farm gate, online, partnering with other local businesses to do something like a local food box, partnering with local restaurants that were still doing food delivery and takeout. And then, as a last resort, if there was surplus food that couldn't be sold, potential options to donate that. And so into the general health and safety protocols for selling direct, and I'll walk through some of these in more detail. So general tips for implementation: 2 meter apart at all times, limiting non-essential travel or carpooling of your workers, looking at shifts or pods or alternating days. So really trying to divide out the risks so that people aren't all exposed to the entire workforce at once. Staggering the arrival of your workers and the breaks of your workers so that there's less congregation during lunch times and break times. Designating areas for each employee while working, so giving them a specific space that they will work in instead of having everyone rotating throughout your operation at once. Assigning designated equipment, so whether that's farm equipment or tools, if possible, having a worker specific to a piece of equipment instead of sharing that at all times. And I'm sure Dean will touch on this later, but PPE is really meant to be as a last resort in the hierarchy of controls. And I do have a little diagram I'll show afterwards. So really you want to remove the risk. And then when you're setting up your space, you're trying to allow for distance in your setup. So allowing people to kind of maneuver your space that you have available while keeping that physical distancing. Offering pre-packaged to reduce contact. Offering a hand wash or sanitation station. Offering self-serve wherever possible. So something like a freezer where they can help themselves. Of course, you would have a staff person wipe down in between customers, but allowing that opportunity to not have to have as much interaction with the staff. Not providing samples or allowing reusable containers. Again, just trying to reduce the transmission between individuals. Removing communal spaces and seating. So while this may not be possible in all instances, you're really trying to limit that opportunity for people to congregate. And while I know that's commonly what we want in an agritourism or a direct farm marketing setting, but unfortunately trying to limit that opportunity for larger groups to get together is really ideal right now. And then of course offering contactless payment. So whether that's pre-ordering or providing some kind of online, or if they have Square or Tap or something where there's not necessarily cash being exchanged or there's less interaction with hands and devices. And this is what I was talking about, the hierarchy of controls. So this is health and safety area and not necessarily my area of expertise, but certainly with any risk, your goal is to eliminate that risk or hazard first of all. So trying to avoid having people in a situation where they have a risk. And then all the way down to something like an engineering control. So you're trying to build a barrier, some structure so that there's less likelihood of transmission, changing the way people work. So that's something like that pod idea to that effect. And then finally, PPE as a least effective, but of course, if people have to be in close proximity, then providing the personal protective equipment such as masks or gloves that they need to do the work. And then in terms of how to market your operation, so we're seeing quite a few businesses that are very successful at this. And again, you might be more well-versed than others as folks who are used to selling direct to consumer, but we're definitely seeing encouraging only visiting if you're healthy, so don't come if you have any symptoms or you're feeling unwell. Encouraging a pre-ordering system, so again, it's more of a pickup situation and less hemming and hawing and looking around while they're on site. In your social media, listing what you're doing on your farm. We've seen this quite a bit as well, saying, these are the rules, this is how we're operating this season, and making it very clear ahead of time, which limits confusion when you're there, when the customers have come to you, but also provides a sense of safety or easing of the minds of those who might be concerned about the risk. And this is certainly true with bringing pets or bringing wagons or those types of things that you'll really want to be clear about ahead of time and clear on what your protocols are. And then on the more fun side, tell your story. People want to support local, be genuine about your business, especially right now. We're seeing a lot more interest in supporting local businesses, food that's closer to home. So that's definitely an opportunity that you can take advantage of. And similarly, people are looking to stay healthy and be healthy during this time. So if there's anything in your products that you can use as kind of a way to, encourage people that your products are healthy, that is definitely something that people are looking for right now. And then, not unlike other times, giveaways, challenges, contests. People are online more than ever right now because of the situation that we're in. So giving them an opportunity to engage with you on social media is really a good way to stay connected. And I also wanted to highlight our online platforms. So we do have there's many available, and the government had a very successful, OMAFRA had a very successful e-commerce funding program that's been put on pause because of all the interest. But OFA also has a trial run with Local Line this year. So we have a 30-day free trial to use their services, as well as 20% off the first year subscription, a website builder, free account setup, free QuickBooks integration, and you use your OFA number in the referral code box to be able to take advantage of that opportunity. And then, as I mentioned, there are many, many resources out there. So these are all listed in the guide itself. There's governmental advice, certainly Ontario Farm Fresh Marketing Association. I'm sure many of you are part of it. They've been an integral organization in giving people advice, holding webinars. They've provided a guide as well. And a few other organizations that have really provided good advice on this front. And then just a couple other things I wanted to highlight. We do have a government financial programs list on our website, and it's updated regularly. So it was just updated last week. So every time a new funding program or announcement comes out, we update it with the latest information. And so it's a great place to go on our website to find out about financial opportunities that you could probably take advantage of. The provincial government and federal, but the provincial government has really done a fantastic job, and OMAFRA's done a great job of providing many funding programs, such as, you know, the workplace protection program, where they'll help fund cleaning products and disinfecting products. So it's a great way to ease the financial burden that some of these new protocols will have. I also wanted to highlight, for those of you who haven't heard of, the Canadian Agricultural Human Resource Council, also known as CARC. They're a federal organization which OFA are members of, and they have also been quite a leader in this space, providing lots of wonderful information for employers in the agri-food space. And with our partnership, we do have access, all of our members have access to the Agri-HR Toolkit, which is a $99 value using the code OFA-Toolkit. So we encourage anyone who's an OFA member to take advantage of that as well. They have guidelines on pandemic policies, on workplace preparedness and that type of thing. So, you know, many people were caught off guard by this pandemic, and so being proactive and creating some of these policies ahead of time will really help in the long run to make sure that your workforce is protected, but also that your business is protected, to say that you've done your due diligence, to say you've planned for these instances, and it will really help you along if, you know, ideally you would not have to deal with any instances on your farm, but this is one way you can show you've done your due diligence and prepared for that. And lastly, I wanted to highlight a new project. We were successful in Canadian Agricultural Partnership funding for a labor and workforce training initiative, and it's called Feeding Your Future. It just launched last month, and we're hosting 9 virtual career fairs, 10 webinars for both job seekers and employers, and have many other initiatives on the go. We're also partnering with agcareers.com and careersinfood.com to offer free job postings using the code AgriFoodAunt20. So if you do have any openings of jobs, we'd encourage you to use that code and take advantage of the free job posting. They are also offering a concierge service through that. So helping you with job descriptions, helping you look through applications. They really will provide a one-window support. So I would certainly encourage you, if you are hiring, to consider that option and taking advantage of the career fairs as well as the webinars, which are also free, and following us on Twitter and Facebook as well. And that's all from me. Just to highlight that Mark Torrey is your member service representative for the area, and he's on the call tonight. So if you have any specific questions to the local area, feel free to direct them his way. But of course, if you have any questions about this initiative, and like I said, I'm focused on economic development and growing the agri-food sector. So that includes agritourism, direct farm marketing, and new opportunities in ag. So I'm happy to answer any questions now or later that you might have. But I will say that the workforce health and safety experts are coming up. So if they're too in-depth, I might ask you to hold off for the next speakers, because they are certainly the experts in that space. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Danielle. That was really informative. It was great to hear about the financial programs and the Feeding Your Future campaign as well. Maybe I'll just put it out to all of the participants. Does anyone have any questions for Danielle at this time? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone with questions, but you can also type them in the chat box, or if anything comes up later, we will have an opportunity for questions at the end. So definitely keep that in mind. So we'll move on to our next segment, which is going to be Lisa Fortuna and Greg Annis from our Durham Region Health Department. So I will pass the mic over to them.
Good evening, everyone. So I just wanted to start off by congratulating Danielle. That is a lot of very excellent work. It very much aligns with what we were probably going to say. So thank you very much. That was very helpful. So before I turn it over to Greg, I just wanted to bring you up to speed on a few things that we've been doing here in Durham Region. The good news is that our number of cases has been steadily decreasing. I think yesterday in Durham region, we only had one case, so that is fantastic news. The number of outbreaks is also decreasing, so we're really seeing a decline. So with that, as you are all aware, we are now in stage 2, and that's been about a week. So, as things start to reopen, we may start to see a few more cases here and there, but so far so good. The one thing that I did want to bring to your attention, and I'm not sure how many people this applies to that's on the line, but for those that do employ temporary farm workers, Dr. Robert Kyle, our Commissioner and Medical Officer of Health, did issue a class order yesterday to all the farms in Durham, their employers. And this is mainly because in Ontario, we have started to see a number of outbreaks among these workers. And this really is a precautionary measure to ensure that the farmers are following the proper precautions. Here in Durham, I feel that we've been very lucky. We've been in contact with all the farms that do have temporary farm workers and have had excellent cooperation. So again, this is just an additional measure just to ensure that if there is an outbreak or even a single case, that we are able to quickly get the information. So I think that's about it for me, but I did want to turn it over to Greg. But before I do that, I just wondered if there was any questions just regarding the class order or how that may work. Nope. Okay, that's good news then. And just, I guess, to reiterate, it is on our website. If people do have questions about that, you can certainly look that up on durham.ca, and also you can reach out to Greg or I. Thank you.
So Lisa, it looks like Rob may have a question. Rob,
Okay.
Did you want to ask it?
Sure. I just I wanted to clarify the order. The part that says that there can only, like a temporary foreign worker can only be employed at one farm at a time. Does that? I read that as transfers from other farms on a permanent basis would still be allowed. But I'm just hoping to confirm that. So I understand that you wouldn't want somebody working at multiple farms throughout the week going back and forth. But if you've got one crop finished up at one farm and you're sending workers to another farm to help them with their crop, does that you're now employed at only one farm? So is that still allowed?
Yes, and there is a process for that for transfers. So as long as that process is in place, then that still is allowed. Is that how?
Okay. Yep. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, I think the floor is mine, or the virtual floor. So good evening, everyone. I don't really have a prepared speech per se, or a presentation to share. It's just, I guess, a wealth of knowledge that's jammed up in my head from the beginning of COVID and dealing with this from the get-go, and just seeing different stores and how through the different phases, how things have gone with my team and the different things that we've looked at. And really, I guess I draw upon not only our resources, but just some real world experiences that I'm living literally like day and night. And so I think that would be my approach tonight with everyone. So having said that, I think Danielle touched on a lot of the good points as Lisa mentioned earlier. I've also reviewed the Berry Growers of Ontario, the guideline. And myself, I'm surrounded in a rural area and by farms, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't drive by them and think about how this is all going to work in the real world. And when I went through that guideline, I was really impressed with, I guess, the level of detail that they had put into that guide. And I know that we've seen some of our farms reach out to us without actually saying who. They had prepared a very good plan, and I think it was based on that guideline. So just a few things to consider. And I guess right from that guideline, there's a few points that I pulled out, which I think are relevant. And so I guess it's as the letter from the minister had indicated, there is no there's no one size fits all approach to this. I think with each of your farms, it is going to be very different and unique and case by case. And so, we're happy to, to discuss those types of unique situations that you might have. But there really isn't a cookie cutter approach to doing this. And that's my first learning lesson, is that, when this first began, we tried to kind of approach everything the same way, but it doesn't always work that way. And really uniquely, everybody has some different situations. So that's sort of my first point. The layout of your operations is key. And so I think when I'm driving by some of these farms, I drive by a strawberry farm pretty well every day. And I think about when that kicks in, how is that actually going to work when people start rolling into your fields and parking, and it's not like the old days where they would just pull in, everyone kind of chit chats and they head out to the fields and they start picking. And so it's a really unique time for us. And this is something that's new coming at us right now. And so just thinking through some of those pieces, some of the things that we're looking at would be, I guess, and again, the guide covers this, but I thought I would touch on it, is your parking aspects and access to your facilities. How we, and again, I don't have the perfect answer for tonight because each farm may be unique in design, but how does the parking work? How do you have people coming in, and maybe they come in loads? You could have 50 cars that arrive at one time. How will you deal with that? How will you deal with that traffic flow? How will you get them out to the fields to pick? And I know there's been some recommendations to not throw them onto the back of a tractor and a trailer basically and haul them out to the field, but rather to have them drive out to the fields individually. And the whole purpose of these points, and I think it's probably well pushed into all of our heads at this point, is to prevent congregating of people. And so I think that's the intent, is that, by throwing them on the back of a trailer, it's fun back in the old days, and you would go out to the fields and start picking. We're really jamming people close together. So the idea of having them travel in different cars out to the field, and how do you manage that traffic flow? And normally this is an area that health doesn't normally obviously get involved with, but it's all very new to me also. But also one of the learning lessons I'm seeing, it's how you process the people that are coming in is key. How do you stop them from congregating, getting out and chatting and becoming a gathering to some extent on your property, and so that they're there just to do what they're supposed to do, which is picking fruit. And so these are really strong, I guess, strong words from my aspect of how is that going to look, and how do you go about doing that? I know the guide talked about a map showing the flow of traffic and sharing that with your customers. I thought that was really interesting approach to it. And so I guess I'm envisioning that, you provide some type of map to them so that they have clear directions and understanding ahead of time. The guide also spoke about doing social media and doing maybe newspaper ads to kind of explain, that your farm's open for business, and, this will be our new process. I think that's key in communicating that out to the public so that they have an understanding about, what your process is, what your expectations are on your property, and it's a win-win for everybody. So I'm not sure how that would work, but I'm sure you have different avenues that you could to do that with. And again, I pulled out some key points that I thought were interesting. So crowd control, and again I go back to that, like how do you stop people from gathering? Some of the problems that I've seen and some of the things that we have dealt with is that we're trying to avoid, I guess the old routine of throwing out picnic tables and, here's a pile of 10 picnic tables, and pre-COVID, people would come and they could sit down and chit chat perhaps and talk about the weather or whatever they wanted to, and gather at that setting. But in these times, it's obviously something that we want to try to avoid. And so my recommendation would be to not have any type of seating. I don't know how to say this, but I guess it's almost like you don't want to make it comfortable for people to gather and hang out. It's really just to come in and do what they need to do, pick the fruit, buy the fruit, and leave the property, really from that approach. And then, I guess the hours and the times and how those pieces might look. The other piece, I guess, is limiting some of your numbers. So, I don't know what that looks like and again, a unique approach to each farm. I feel that I don't know what number, there's no magic owner's manual on this, on how many people you might want to allow, you know, into your gate and into the field at one time, and how do you space those groups out? You know, it could be families that are picking together, etc. So how do you space the group out through your lines or through your fields and through the paths? I don't know really how that would work, but I know that guide has given some good direction onto that. I think I've covered that. So the other piece, I think Danielle spoke about this, was it's an interesting approach, and this is something that keeps coming back as a common denominator for us, is the contact payment process. And so I'm just going to throw up, I'm going to try to share my screen. I'm not great with technology always, but I think I get this. So we do have a great, let me just, of course, that's going to make a liar out of me, isn't it? Hang on. Okay, I'm not sure if everyone can see that. So this, is everyone seeing that?
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you. And again, I'm struggling with the technology a little bit, but from this aspect, this is our community reopening toolkit. And I'm not sure if anyone's had a chance to look at it, but there is a ton of information that my team and our department has been putting on here in order to help out the residents of Durham. And just scrolling down through it, we do have some, I'm just going down through the sector specific guidance. And in the sector specific guidance, we do have an agricultural box. And this speaks about, we have a fact sheet for migrant farm worker operations, community gardens, and this may or not apply, but so agriculture, health and safety during COVID, I think that was shared earlier, and additional sector guidance. We also have, I think, under farmers market. So, and again, I wasn't sure for tonight if maybe some of you are involved in taking the product to a farmer's market, but I thought these were good points to share. So we do have a guideline on multi-vendor markets, and what I wanted to highlight was here is the guideline for e-commerce and e-market protocols. And so I think this may be a good resource for everyone. This may be a common theme for how do we do the contactless, and what kind of direction or information could you provide us? And so this guideline, I think, may help with that. And again, I think the pieces could be taken from it. So it shows a plan and timing, etc. It's a little different in your cases because you can't really stay in your vehicle to pick strawberries, as an example. You have to get out to do it. There has to be a physical action here. But I think the points that I wanted to highlight were, again, it's the same kind of messaging over and over that you'll see. You know, how do you deal with people that are sick? So again, signage, having signage up to basically have people self-monitor and know that if they're sick, then they shouldn't be on the farm, and they shouldn't certainly be picking any fruits. And again, washing your hands. I don't know if the plans, I know with the guideline, I think I had read that the hand washing station. So there is a recommendation to have hand wash stations throughout the farm. And I know there are portable ones that can be rented or purchased, hand sanitizers, etc. The physical distancing piece here, again, is critical. It's a little different. I'm sure we've all been through the grocery store process now. And as you line up at the grocery store, you'll see, you know, markings denoted on the ground. Sometimes you'll see directional arrows. You know, I believe those same things could be applied, and I believe that the guide speaks to that also. A little harder to put it on the ground, but maybe some signage on a stake indicating direction, one-way direction through the field, directions on the farm, like basically funneling people down a path is what you're trying to do while maintaining the 2 meters, 6 feet gap between them. The use of the non-medical masks. Again, these are just some of the key messages. Covering your cough. I think we've probably all seen these. And again, this is an important one, waiting here. So again, it's a different approach on this, but the same concepts could be applied. So at the point of sale, after that's occurred, coming off close together. So how do you keep them apart? And then how do you keep them up? How do you process them through the point of sale process? So again, maybe you need a wait here sign. This is where you wait for the next person in line to approach to do the point of sale. Some of these other things may or may not apply to you. I'm not sure the scope of who has what. Some may have a retail food aspect as part of their berry picking, as an example, and so those obviously are a little bit different. So I think that's it for that one. Let me just go to, and then I do have a common.
We do have one question,
Sure.
if that's okay. Wilma,
Yeah.
did you want to ask your question now?
Sure, I will. Just before we get too far into another aspect of it. Greg, you said something about, not putting out picnic tables and things like that, say at a strawberry field and so on. And yet, the patios can be open and, things like that. So, and for many, especially the agri-food, part of the process or part of the joy is the experience. And so I'm just wondering if, any thought or consideration has been given to, like setting up patio type areas. I mean, it seems contradictory to me. So
right, and that's a very good point. So with being into our stage 2 with the patios being permitted to open, you're quite correct. I think I was just coming at it from the flow on the farm. Like I really don't know. Like there comes a fine line between like almost inducing like a large gathering, and again, I don't know what that might look like on the farm. I'm just assuming that you could have 50 cars just show up and start picking fruit, and so I guess I'm thinking about it from a congregating standpoint. How do you keep everybody apart, and how do you, but still understanding your point, but how do you keep everyone apart and not inducing a large gathering? With the patios, we do have a patio fact sheet actually on our community resource tool as well. And it speaks to some of the rules around how we would like to see that happen with our advice, guidance, and recommendations, of course. So I don't know if that helps.
Well, I was just more curious because I just felt that maybe a lot of the conversation was directed to phase 1 conditions, and
right.
I just wondered if we were moving forward to the phase 2 thoughts and scopes and different ways. That was more where my question was coming from, because like even I understand the 50. But we can do 10 type thing and so on and so forth. And now we have bubbles and all those things, so.
I know.
I know. And everybody, the problem is everyone gets mixed messages. And so that was really where my question was more is, I understand for an agri-food perspective that much of it is part of an experience. And if we keep people in their cars, they can go do the job and go back home.
Right.
Much is lost that way. So I just wanted to know if we were thinking a little bit beyond that. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and it's a good point. I mean, it's something we can take back and we'll stew it over with our team, because it's, like I said, this is something that's quite new that's coming at us, and it's literally something new by the day, by the minute. And so I haven't had a chance to wrap my head completely around everything that happens around the farm aspects of it, but these are definitely things we can consider and look at for sure. And I'd be happy to, like, if you reached out to me, we could chat more about it.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay. And there was.
Sorry, it's Lisa. If I can just jump in, I know we're running a little bit on time, but I just wanted to say, I think what the things that Greg and we've talked about is, I don't know, again, like Greg, we don't know the typical setup, but we wouldn't want, 10 picnic tables kind of all in one area where you then turns out to be kind of a mass gathering, right? So if you can strategically put these picnic tables like in a large area, and as Greg was referring to, we do have the patio document, but in that there is physical distancing guidelines. So again, I would think a patio would have to include those the farm would have to include those same physical distancing guidelines with the picnic tables. So just to keep that in mind. Yeah, like best laid plans always are great, but from the things that we have seen, unfortunately things are not always going the way things are planned with these. So just again, just anything that we can do that discourages gatherings is our key recommendation.
Thanks, Lisa. Yes, I would agree. It's really challenging for us, everyone, to kind of, there's a lot of things and there's a lot of pieces to it. But yeah, a plan is actually really helpful for us to see what it might look like. And that's what we're into right now with a number of different things.
That's great. Thanks, Greg. I'm just looking at the time here.
Sure.
I don't want to cut you off, but maybe if you're kind of close to wrapping up, we'll just finish up here and keep moving.
Yeah.
And if there are any other questions, people can put those in the chat, or we'll loop back with you at the end. Would that be all right?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest on our community resource toolkit, there was just, it was a quick comment that we do have something called Protect Yourself and Others, and it's somewhat of a generic fact sheet. And I think that would also be good for everyone to print out and put on their farms too. Like, it wouldn't hurt to have some of the signage there too. And I guess in closing, just if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to be reached. And I think our coordinates are shared. And if I don't know the answer, we'll work it out and we'll get back to you with it.
Perfect. Thanks, Greg. Yes,
problem.
we will share the contact information for all of the speakers for the webinar participants. So if you think of something after tonight, we can definitely make sure you have the right contact info. So moving into our next section, I'm going to hand it over to Dean Anderson with Workplace Safety and Prevention Services. So take it away, Dean. You've got about just about 10 minutes or so.
No pressure. Let me see what I can do here. Hopefully it's coming up for everybody. There
we can see it. You're good.
Yep.
Okay. I've got a lot of material written down here. I know you're going to get the PowerPoint afterwards. I'm going to go through these topics as logical as I can. One comment I would have on the tables is you have a big advantage. You should have some space. You can spread your tables out. And I'm talking more about the worker here. Have your staff sit at a different area of seating. So try and keep your staff away from the general public. It's going to be my one comment. Allison's got my information, so you can always contact me afterwards. I have one slide in here just to tell you who Workplace Safety and Prevention Services are. We are the designated health and safety organization for education and awareness to the workplaces. We cover agriculture, manufacturing, and service sectors, and that adds up to be about 65–70% of the workplaces actually in the province. I've been doing farm safety for 20 years, so it's the old Farm Safety Association for anyone who remembers back that far. As I said, I'm taking the standpoint here mainly as the employer. I'm not going to go through all of this words. The most important thing on this is probably the very bottom line. The employer is going to be responsible for doing everything responsible to protect their workers. And so I like to use the concept of, and I think we've heard a lot of good information already, but it's that idea of we need to have a plan, do a bit of a risk assessment. I like to think of it as stop, think, and act. So right now is the best time to stop and think. What's the worst thing that could happen? What has everybody been telling me I should do? So social distancing, barriers, PPE as a last resort, lots of hand washing, lots of sanitizing, and then act is putting those things into place. So the one thing about doing this is you do need to have a written down what your plan is. And Greg was even alluding to that, having a map, having your process. I would suggest online telling people what your process is going to be. It's going to be by appointment for pick your own between 8 o'clock and 11 o'clock in the morning, because that's when people pile in. And in the afternoon, you'll be limiting it to, so many cars entering an hour or something like that. Selling your product by volume in a pail or a bag that you provide, as opposed to weighing it. So you don't have a scale and all those kind of things. You can start to think how these things, you can distance your workers from the public. I put this one in here. It's just information. It's interesting how many people don't think of COVID-19 as an occupational disease, but if they get the disease while they're in the workplace, WSIB will honor it as a occupational contracting of the disease, just like as if you got salmonella poisoning from eating too many dirty strawberries. It's the same kind of thing. So the link's there, you phone them. It's the same as you would for any other knowledge. And I think there's something like 400 cases already at WSIB for people who say they've caught COVID through work-related exposure. So it is already being managed. I'm going to go sort of into the support stuff here right now. We have a lot of support on our website. As I say, most of it's aimed at the employer, the supervisor. We don't do an awful lot directly at the employee. We have lots of support for doing policy and procedures. There's lots of mental health supports. We do a lot of direct linking with Canadian Mental Health. Our COVID materials, we actually have a link and a hub that goes strictly to pandemic COVID materials. We actually had a lot of this material in place for SARS because we do handle retail and we do handle manufacturing. So we've had a lot of material and resources on our website in the past. Just specifically for the ag sector, we do have a COVID specific page that you can go to and you can actually select just agriculture. For the people that are setting up retail and some of those, we do handle retail. So we have a lot of information for retail also. So you would want to select, when you go into our hub site, you'd want to also possibly select agriculture and retail, and it'll give you a lot of guidance materials. We have an entire section that's just farm safety. You can access that off OFA's website also. We have, for those who have the foreign workers, we have Spanish and English materials. Our mental health, we've actually been building quite a bit of stuff around the mental health. And now because of COVID, we're getting a bunch of other sort of related stresses that are popping up, and we've developed several pieces of material for that. The Canadian Agriculture Human Resource Council, Danielle had that link on hers too. That was one of the best links early for people. They've done an awful lot of material on there. They've got a lot of CDC stuff. The Ontario government has got a lot of very good stuff. Someone was mentioning PPE. I know, for example, they have a resource list of where you can find PPE. You type in your town, it'll tell you sort of the nearest locations of where you can locate PPE. We've had a lot of people that have had that concern on where can I find materials and how do I get materials. So those are all very, very good links for you to get to. I've heard, it was Greg, I think, talking about the berry growers. The Ontario Berry Growers Association did a very good 6 or 7 page document for pick your own operations. And I sent that PDF to Alyson. She's going to send it out to everyone. There also was a very good product done by Nova Scotia on pick your own. So there was a question came up earlier today about specifically for that. There's some good materials there. If anyone has any specific questions around some options, I'm much like Greg. I don't want to tell you what you have to do and how specifically you should do it. We certainly can find you information to sort of guide you through it. I think of how I've experienced retail outlets as an example. I was in a marina and they put a kayak so I couldn't get close to the desk. I was in a tire store. They strung yellow tape across so I couldn't get within 10 feet of the cashier. I bought something, a filter for my hot tub, and I never went into the store. I phoned them, they came with the part to the door, put it outside the door, and then I paid for it online with my phone. Imagination, I think, is very important for how you deal with this. And I don't think much like Greg did, there is no absolute answer on how you should do this. Your imagination, I think, actually can differentiate you from your nearest competition, which may be your neighbor. That's just one thing I can think of. One thing that has been done, we have approximately, 40 or 50 guidelines now that are out there. This is the list that are specific guidance documents. They're 3 to 4 pages for the sector. They've been approved by the Minister of Labor and the Minister of Health, the Department of Health. So there's supervisors, workers, some general workers, for shipping and receiving, your transportation of workers, which has been a real question, especially with our foreign temporary workers, warehousing and forklift operators and those kind of things, you know, making people just, that's your piece of equipment, you don't keep shifting. And one that was just delivered on the 17th of this month was, we did one for using temporary hiring agencies. It appears that they're one of the vectors that's been hard on exposing our foreign temporary workers, where they've been bringing in domestic workers from temporary hiring agencies, and they haven't necessarily been as truthful as they should be about their exposures pre the employment for the farm, unlike our foreign temporary workers, which have gone through quarantines and everything to get here. So that document just came out, I think it was like it might have actually only hit the website on Monday. And much like Danielle did mention one of the funding programs that are out there under CAP. The project was under the Agri Worker Protection Program. There is a component of that, which is an agreement between us and CAP. The best way I can describe it is, it's like being pre-approved for up to $2,000 of consulting services. If people want to, they can contact our customer care is the easiest way to do it, and they will start through the process. But along with the program which is out there, I think there's about $7,500. Danielle could correct me on that. It's available for doing such things as purchasing protective equipment, enhancing your cleaning, designing your workshops. We have an agreement which is for personalized consulting and training specific to COVID. We can and will come out to your operation if you want. Our people are fully trained. I have a big pile of PPE here sitting in my office waiting for me to use it. We do a full coveralls, the whole bit. And once we start to leave to go to farms, we actually have a whole system ourselves of self-monitoring our temperatures, etc. So we will not visit more than one farm a day, but we will certainly do it to help people through it. I don't think you necessarily need to have a person come to your farm to help you, but we can certainly help you out, and pictures and those kind of things can do an awful lot of things. And the program does run till March. So even if you stumbled your way through this year, but you want to make sure that it's properly captured and maybe it's in your programs for the future, you certainly can keep taking advantage of this service. Let's say outside of your busy service time. So if it's strawberries now and you're busy, and then it slacks off a bit. I know strawberries are day neutral now, most of them, but you're going to have a break before your apple season. Maybe you want to have someone come in and tweak something that didn't work well during your strawberry season. You can certainly take advantage of that, and you do it through contacting our customer care group. I do think it's important to note that it is important to have your policies written down and follow them. And the main reason I say that, monitor your workers, their temperature, pre-ask them a day. My wife works in long-term care. They take her temperature twice a day. She answers a couple questions on how she's feeling and how everyone in the house is feeling. She comes home and showers before she touches anything else in the house. You may want to come up with some of those rules for your workers, especially on the daily screenings, those kind of things. I mean, if they wake up and they have a temperature, tell them to phone in sick to monitor their temperature. There's no use them coming in and making your customers sick and or your other workers. Worst thing being losing the rest of your workforce. So I'm going to stop there, I think. And I think that's the last slide I prepared. Yes, it looks like it is. Are
there any questions for Dean?
I did want to leave time for questions, so I hope I didn't rush too much through that. Please take the time to do that. If you need to, get my phone number and give me a call or send me an email.
I don't see any questions, so
that's always good.
We'll keep on moving along. So next up we have Alyson with Willowtree Farm. So I will pass it over to Alyson.
Hi. I'm sure that Jordan's here too, as you can see.
Hello.
He's here to give any extra input, but I see it's 8 o'clock, and when you asked me to speak, I just want to make sure that I'm being helpful and not being redundant. So hopefully a little bit of this may help some people. We have been open. We've remained open through Willowtree Farm throughout this whole journey. But the topic has been covered quite a few months now, and people have all been to stores in different locations and have done online orders, I'm sure, or have had delivery. So it's a little bit different now as people know a lot more. I tried to think of the top kind of 6 tips that I would want to know from myself if I was, I guess, gearing this towards other farmers that are opening for direct sales. So my tip number 1, and this is kind of going toward in a chronological order, is that pre-sales is great, like time ticketed or ticketed sales has been awesome. I totally recommend it, which we'll talk about later. What happened was when COVID-19 was bubbling over the week, that was actually when we started our Maple Syrup Festival. So we started the weekend with our Maple Fest, and we quickly realized that it was going to be the last weekend. But we had thousands of dollars in pre-sold tickets. And we were worried. We didn't know if we were going to be shutting down, what was going to happen to our business. Fest that over 5 weekends helps us and our bank account until we can get the crops out and into the store and to the people and farmers markets. And so we decided to offer two options. One was for refunds that we put a gift card for our store to be used at a later time, or we would do full refunds, and about 65% of the people took a gift card. So that was really wonderful. And some people even just donated their money. They just said they didn't want their money back at all, and they wanted to give it to us since we do so much for the community, which was amazing. So that's one thing I would say is if something that happens out of your control forces a closure of a pre-sold event, try to retain your sales by offering a gift card or gift certificate. So that was my one tip. Tip number 2, I found out that during a pandemic, people still need to eat and they need food. So delivering food direct to the consumer is a great thing right now, and also diversifying to include staple items. So we were still reeling from having to shut down our festival and trying to figure out what we were going to be doing. And then I quickly realized that we needed to offer curbside and delivery options as everyone was coming back from March break trips. The snowbirds were coming home. People were quarantining all over the place. So I had it up and marketed in about 2 days, and it was just me and a computer and a telephone. And I was quickly and extremely overwhelmed. And I was watching other businesses over social media to see what they were doing. And it was just so interesting because some were asking customers to text, others by phone, others by email, and they all had different combinations. And as Greg said, what I realized was that what works for one business may not work for another business. You kind of have to make your own way. So there's no cookie cutter approach, which I totally agree. But the biggest thing I learned was people need food. And our sales quadrupled basically overnight. With a winter crew, which we lost a lot of staff due to factors of health or whatever personal reasons that they left. So we did a lot of hiring and then also a lot of training because of the health and safety measures that we had to implement. So a lot of changes and a lot of learning lessons, right? Lessons learned. So still we're like on Easter, our sales were greater than our Thanksgiving sales of 2019, which Thanksgiving weekend is our biggest weekend in sales every year, hands down. And this year we surpassed our Thanksgiving sales at Easter. So
and Father's Day surpassed.
And Father's
Day.
Father's
Day surpassed Thanksgiving of last year. Like Father's Day weekend in the build-up surpassed Easter by a little bit and Thanksgiving last year by a fair bit. So it's a good time to sell food if you can.
And also the butcher shop, it was interesting to me to see some of the trends change. So before COVID happened, it was all about plant-based and a lot of vegan options, and not saying that it's not there still, but overnight, the butcher shop just became the biggest hit. So the meat eaters definitely came out of the woodwork, and the butcher shop has seen the most growth out of any of the areas of our store. And yeah, did you want to say anything else about figures?
No, you covered it. Yeah, we were up, coming out of April, we were up, the butcher shop was up over 200%. The store was up, 2 to 3 times. It was a struggle keeping up with the growth and the supply, the products, staffing, but it's been numbers wise, it's been a very strong spring.
So my tip number 3, be prepared to answer questions on what you are doing to keep everyone safe. We definitely found that by having this information readily available to our customers and to our community, it really helped to cut down on negativity due to lack of communication and worry. A lot of people are worried and they want to know what are you putting into place. So I created a document early on that listed all the efforts that were being made by our business to keep our customers and our employees safe and healthy. I put it on our website. I did a long explanation on our phone message before they could actually reach and talk to anybody. I put it on social media. We sent it out via our MailChimp newsletter to our customers and our subscribers. It was posted on all of our entrance and exit doors. And we had to coach our team, and also we had a lot of new staff, and we had to train them properly before they could start. That way everyone was informed, and staff could easily refer customers to it, to our website. We also posted flyers created by the government that I could find in March. It was hard, in the staff rooms, the bathrooms, above all of our hand wash sinks. I won't go through all the measures that we have implemented, but I'm happy to send anyone a copy, or you can still find them on our website under Contact Us, and it's health and safety measures. I would just point out the 2 biggest different things that not everyone did is, 1, we have everyone take their temperatures every morning before they start their shift. This is only at Willowtree for reasons I'll mention in my challenges section. And 2, we don't allow our employees to work any other jobs. So we found if they, had 2 part-time jobs, they had to choose if they were going to stay with us or if they needed to go to the other job. That was fine. But we wanted to minimize as much risk and exposure as possible.
We did the COVID. You want to talk about the COVID bonus?
Oh, yeah, sure. And we did. So when everything shut down, we decided to give a $2 an hour bonus to all of the staff that were working, just knowing that they're working under high stress, that everyone was scared, and times were uncertain. So we wanted them to know how much we appreciated them coming to work every day. So we did that for almost 3 months. Yeah.
3 months.
Yeah, 3 months. So that was not really necessarily about health and safety measures, but yeah, a nice thing that we did for our staff, I would say. Tip number 4, okay, ride the wave of the trends and try to stay one step ahead. So we've had a lot of successes with being prepared for the new trend that COVID has brought us, but we've also fallen short and didn't plan properly. One thing, we saw that baking was becoming a phenomenon, so we responded quickly by selling flour and yeast and buying up hordes of flour and yeast. We did baking competitions over social media, had people engaged. We also did a barbecue one where we did contests for show us what you're barbecuing, show us what you're baking, but definitely the, not baking, roasting and stuff in the oven. And baking was the best thing that we had. It was really, really a popular contest. What else? The one thing that we fell short on is we knew that gardening was going to become a phenomenon, but we didn't really prepare properly, and we totally did not order in enough plants and herbs and baskets and all that stuff. So we sold out right away, and we went back, and our suppliers were all sold out as well. So we fell flat on that one. Another thing, just I would say watching food trends in your own market, because things that would have used to fly off the shelves now are stagnant, and then things that didn't sell previously, now they are selling really hot. So it's just really interesting to watch how your sales have changed in the market, in the store. So the next big thing that we think is going to be canning. So we just bought 2 skids of mason jars. We're worried that there's going to be shortages on all canning supplies. We also have, we're trying to get in a whole bunch of pectin and doing some jamming kits, things like that. So along the same lines of that is my tip number 5 is be innovative and creative. So life still has to continue on. We are humans, and humans are meant to be social. Our farms are built on social interactions with our customers, and our customers come to us for an experience, like Wilma said, and for that connection. And they want to be connected to their food source, and they crave it. And so we all need to adjust and find ways to still feed that need and to still provide an experience to our customers in ways that's safe and still fulfilling. And we can find lots of ways to make this happen. And actually, I've really enjoyed that part of it, is to just really think outside the box and find ways that we can still get people on the farm and do fun things. Like everybody, they have, like, even when people weren't working, they're stuck in their house with their kids, and their kids don't know what's going on, and they just want to play and they want to do things. So just whatever we can do that we can get families out and engage safely. So one thing we did was a drive-through rhubarb festival. That was a month ago. Everything, we're so swamped, so we haven't even done a lot of advertising for things ahead of time. So we only advertised about a week and a half before the event. We sold out all of our time slots for Saturday. Sunday was almost sold out. Made just under $20,000 over the 2 days, but it was really about trying something new and something that was safe for everyone. I was really worried kind of when we tried this that, people go, really, is this all, I'm just going to drive through a 10 and grab some lemonade. But everybody loved it. They were just, all they could say is, what are you doing next? When are you, what new thing are you going to do? When's the next drive through? Because we want to come. So it was really neat. And the really cool thing is we, this was all pre-sold. We pre-sold 363 pounds of asparagus, and we sold 345 pounds of rhubarb just in those 2 days, which is pretty cool, I think. We sold 750 lemonades, and the list goes on. So it was a big success, I would say. And it was great to see all the kids. All the windows were open. The dogs were able to come to the event. And anyway, it was a great time. We also did food for Easter. We did a Mother's Day, all pre-sold. They come and they pick up different Mother's Day dishes that were all prepared for them. That was a huge hit. And then most recently, we did a Father's Day, which, as sales-wise, was great. They were hugely popular and has been really fun. And everything is pre-sold, so we know exactly how many are going out the door. We can staff appropriately. We can plan appropriately. It's been awesome.
It was all curbside. Most of it was curbside too.
Yeah,
so
they could come into the store,
Yeah.
or they could do curbside, or they could do delivery. So they had lots of shopping options. So, and then best thing I did for these events was to start using a ticketing company. We did do online tickets through WooCommerce, through our website, but I actually went to Fair Harbor. It's a ticketing company, and it's made my life so much easier. The reports that they give me, the totals, the whole thing has been unbelievably awesome, and I will be using this for time-ticketed events for the rest of the year, and really likely forever. We have the control. We know exactly when people are coming onto the farm, how many to expect, and we're prepared. So it's great. And we can keep everything safe, and distancing and all of those aspects are in place. And so that has been, I think, a great learning for us. And I'm sorry if I'm keeping people too long. Do you want to cut me off? Or am I okay?
No, you're doing great. Keep going.
I'm doing okay. Okay. I have one more tip. Okay. So tip number 6, I mean, I feel like all these tips are really commonsensical, but is think and respond on the fly, and be able to respond to changes in the environment quickly and adeptly. That's the name of the game with since March, and everything's constantly changes. Rules are changing, guidelines are easing or different. Each week presents a new challenge, and we have to adapt. So, for example, for most of March, we just changed it actually this week. It was the beginning of this week. We created a rule that only one person per group or family can come into the store at one time. People did not like that rule. That's been a real challenge.
Let's talk about why you did that. It's our occupancy.
So what we decided was that in our store, we could only have a maximum of 12 people in the store at one time to maintain safe physical distancing. So we've had a doorman. We actually hired now a security company that come and they do Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Both stores. Yeah.
For both stores, yeah. And then we'll have it on next week. We're going to have it all week because of Pick Your Own. And they constantly are tracking the numbers of how many people can come into the store. And so what we found kind of when everything was shut down, we found people were kind of coming into our store and using it as something to do. And we didn't want that. We wanted people to come in, get what they needed and leave. Like that was it. So that was partly it. And then the second thing is if you let in 3 groups, like their family of 4 and there's 3 of them, then you only have 3 families in there instead of if one person's coming in, then 12 families can shop at one time. So it was kind of there were multiple reasons for that. But as we've moved into a different phase and things are opening up, and honestly, we were just tired of fighting with people. It was just daily emails and social media messages, people saying that they'll never come back to our business. And it was really hard. So we just changed to 2-person per group or family, also knowing that as things are easing up and like thinking about all of our amazing customers that are more cottagers, they come in just husband and wife. And I just felt like I know that they're great customers and they're coming in, they're doing their shopping. So we just changed that. And what else? Okay, patios can open up. So it's okay. Patios can up. Right. What do we do about patios? So we have a patio at Willowtree Farm. So what I did is I haven't opened it yet. So I'm putting signs on there saying that if there's a cone on the table, then don't sit here, it hasn't been sanitized. There'll be big like traffic cones right next to each table. So if they've sat there, they put the cone on the table and then that alerts us that it alerts us and it alerts other customers that hasn't been cleaned and sanitized. And they're not, and then the signage says, do not sit here until a staff comes out and properly sanitize it. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, now that summer's here, I was worried about insane lineups. How are we gonna lose sales? It's hot, where are they gonna line up? And there were so many questions. So I implemented a personal shopper concept. So we have a tent outside. They pay $2.99 convenience fee. They skip the line. They give us their grocery list. We go in and we shop for them on the spot. They can wait in the comfort of their car, and then they pay by debit credit outside. The first weekend we had about 9, and then the second weekend it was probably about the same. We thought, well, maybe this isn't going to work, but we need to give it time. And now it's like 20 plus a day. So I'd say it's working. And basically to that means we're trying to offer multiple methods of shopping and getting their food. So we still have the curbside pickup, we have deliveries, we have in-store, we have the personal shopper, and now we're just finalizing our full e-commerce online store, which will also open up our delivery area to Whitby and Oshawa. Okay, that's it. The only thing I was going to say is 2 challenges for us, because there's been a lot, but is not being able to get the PPE supplies and cleaning supplies that we need. That's been a real challenge, which goes back to we can't take temperatures for Pingo staff because I cannot find ear temperatures or the forehead temperatures anywhere. They're all on back order until at least August. And then the second thing is social media and customers. Overwhelmingly, we've had so much support. We've had so many wonderful customers and messages. They've brought tears to my eyes. We're so lucky. And at the same time, sometimes the few negative comments can really bring you down, and the staff as well. It's been a real challenge. I think with people being stressed and worried, it's just been impatient. Yeah, it's been tough, and it's tough on the staff, and it's hard to see that. And we have a duty to protect our staff and our employees while they're at work. And so we have had to, respectfully talk to people about their behavior at our store, which we've never really had to do before. So it's definitely all a learning experience for us. So I don't want to end on a negative note. All in all, our business has, thank goodness, flourished during this time. And we've been able to donate over $11,000 to the Uxbridge Food Bank and the Scugog Food Bank, which we did a food drive, which the customers loved. Our employees loved doing it. And we just had so much fun being able to give back. We've weathered the storm, I guess, so to speak, so far at Willowtree, and now our next steps is Pingles. We have a lot of ideas on the go for some more fun events that still experiences. Yes, you're right.
For the health department, it's an experience.
It's an experience, and it's going to be lots of fun. And so we're busy, and that's it. I will let you go because I went way over. Sorry.
No, don't apologize. I think that was all extremely valuable information, and we really appreciate your time. I know you guys are extremely busy and have a number of priorities on your plate, so thank you very much. Are there any questions for Jordan or Alyson? No questions at this time, so maybe we'll just open it up generally if there's anyone who's thought of a question along the way for any of the speakers we've had tonight. I'll just give it a few minutes, and if we don't hear any, I will pass it over to Tracy and Rob for a bit of a wrap up.
I have a quick question for Alyson and Jordan. I'm just wondering if you have a specific way of communicating that you find is the most effective, whether it's social media or your e-newsletter or physical signage. If there's a specific way you find really reaches your customers the best.
And specifically to health and safety measures?
Yeah.
Not signage.
No, they read the signs. They just don't. Oh, they just kind of keep walking by them, but I see them read them. You know what? I guess I would say in person in a way. Someone physically standing there telling them is probably the most effective.
Yeah, but a combination.
I would say a combination.
Our social media gets a lot of good discussions happening. We do a newsletter multiple times a week. Our greeter, I don't think we'd be able to have the store running the way it is without proper, I don't want to call it security, but it is a security company we've hired for both stores at the door to limit the number of people and just to make sure everyone knows, not the rules, but just kind of knows what's going on before they go in. He's not there to police them. He's there to limit occupancy, greet them. We call him a greeter, but instead of just having a student there or an employee, we decided to hire a professional company for the consistency. And it's, especially at Willowtree, even today we had a lineup of a dozen plus people at the store. On the weekends, our lineups are much longer. And it's, for a busy place, you need to keep your occupancy low. You need to decide what you're comfortable with in the store, depending on your layout, your flow, how long people shop, and you have to follow that because you got to keep your customers safe, you got to keep your staff safe, and it may slow people down, but they're used to it now. They're used to waiting because they're waiting everywhere they go. They can't just run into Canadian Tire. You can't run into Loblaws. You've got to wait everywhere you go. So just if you're a busy market, just be aware. Especially if you're a busy small market, you're really going to have to do something to limit occupancy right from sometimes 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning on till close.
I think too, yeah, when there's so many, everyone has a different rule. Every store you go in has a different rule. It's so hard to keep up, even for me. Like everybody, you're so confused. You're like, am I supposed to wear a mask? Am I not? Am I supposed to follow the pattern? Am I supposed to stand on a spot? Like it's so confusing to everybody. So I think, yeah, just having that person at the door, just nicely informing people of the kind of guidelines of each location.
Perfect, thank you. And we have a question in the chat box as well. So the question is regarding PPE. So it says, is it recommended for employees who are outside on the farm but in contact with visitors, sometimes closer than 2 meters, to accept payment? And to use face shields or mask or both. So they're just kind of looking at what's preferred and what is required. So maybe this is a question for health, or maybe Dean has some insight into that one.
Yeah, it's Lisa from Public Health. I can start on that. So anytime that physical distancing can't be maintained, then PPE is recommended. So if you do wear a face shield, then a mask is also recommended. A face shield without a mask doesn't really help. And just to add the piece with the non-medical mask, wearing a non-medical mask protects others from you. So, and if you want to protect yourself from others, and that's where you would wear a shield and a medical mask.
I think too, in this question, it was about a payment process or a checkout. You know, we have the plexiglass shields at all of our checkouts, and it's a nice, easy way to create that barrier and still have eye contact, good communication, but keep your staff safe. So if it is a set place, like a checkout in the field or a checkout in your store, a full barrier is a great way to keep that.
Yeah, as an occupational health and safety, the best thing would be barrier as opposed to the PPE. It's sort of that hierarchy and that triangle, upside down triangle that Danielle showed. You would like to physically keep the 2 meters distance. If you can't do that, a barrier. The fallback is your PPE. And the reason for that is people touch their face, they put their PPE on, they actually can still do a lot of exposing. So you'd be much better off having a barrier and lots of hand washing as opposed to relying just on some sort of just a surgical mask. That would be my comment. Obviously, public health is the lead on advice for that.
No, it's Lisa. So that's exactly right. You know, as you had said, people do touch their masks and their face. So sometimes people think that they're invincible because they have a mask or because they're wearing gloves, and oftentimes it can be worse.
Do we have any other last minute questions? Okay. We've got one from Rob. So he says, it seems many businesses have left masks wearing up to employees as a personal choice. Is this accurate? So I'm not sure if Lisa, maybe you want to take that one.
Yeah, I guess that is the decision. It is a business decision as to whether they should, whether they implement that. But, and I'm sure others can comment, but it is the employer's responsibility to make sure that their staff are safe as well. So if they haven't put any other types of controls in place and masks are the only alternative, then it should be a requirement. I'm not sure if anyone else wants to comment.
We've left it up to the choice of employees, and we do have some employees who choose to wear a mask, and we do have some employees that choose not to. And that's what we've been comfortable with. We do, you know, washing hands, lots of hand sanitizer, gloves, physical distancing, but we've left that choice up to our employees. We provided masks all for them, and we've left it up to them whether to wear them or not.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. So if there are no other questions, I don't want to cut anyone off if they have questions, but we will circulate all the presentations and the contact information. So if you do think of anything after the fact, you can definitely reach out to the presenters or Alyson, Tracy, or I. So yeah, if there's no other questions, maybe I'll hand it over to Rob and Tracy from Durham Farm Fresh just to wrap things up.
Hi, everybody, and thanks, Stacey. I just want to say thank you to the organizers, yourself, Alyson, and of course, Tracy for pulling together such a great list of speakers tonight. I know there's a lot of information there for a lot of people, but as was said, I think there's a lot of new information coming at us as business owners and managers from every direction, it seems, all the time. And I think this was really important to have a agritourism and farm business focused conversation to kind of hash some of these details out and at the very least assemble a group of experts that we now have the contact information for, so that if there's any further questions or comments that come up after this, we know who to reach out to. Of course, thank you to Jordan and Alyson for giving us your firsthand experience. I know that was really invaluable for me, and I'm sure for many others. And just a reminder that this presentation will be shared, circulated, and available to those who were on the meeting, as well as those who were not. So if anybody's missed it, hopefully you find some valuable information in this. And thanks again for everybody for joining.
Awesome. Tracy, do you want to add anything, or if everyone's kind of feels like we've wrapped up?
I think Rob kind of handled everything. The only thing I was just thinking to mention, I hope that everybody who's participated tonight got some value out of this. We are considering more of this type of discussion or webinar. If there's other topics that you think would be valuable to discuss, please don't hesitate to shoot any one of us an email, and we would love to do more of these. In light of the fact that we can't do workshops and other face-to-face things, I think this is still a great way to open up discussions for people and learn from each other. So thanks.
Well, thanks again to everyone, the presenters, and everyone for joining in with us tonight. And I guess that concludes the webinar. So we'll follow up with an email tomorrow. And if you have any questions, you'll know how to reach us. So thanks everyone for joining in.
Thanks,
Good night,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you. Have a good night.
Night.